Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Leah Johnson, and I wanted to join the conversation that's been happening nationwide around equity, fairness, affirmative action, etc. I feel like 30 years is repeating itself because I'm dating myself, but in the 90s, we were having these conversations in college about affirmative action, its need, is it reverse discrimination, level the playing the field, comments like that. And I've recently engaged in conversations where individuals' arguments were, hey, other people of color who are middle class have been the ones to say we don't need affirmative action. We've gotten into these opportunities and we need to be fair across the board. And I paused in those conversations because I like to have data and statistics, and I wanted to know how many individuals made statements like that. What was their socioeconomic background? What were their experiences? And were they the first of those experiences, or did they come from generations of those experiences? And what percentage of their experience reflects the nationwide experience? So, affirmative action, I looked at the words I wanted to really think about. And when I think about the word affirmative, the definition is supportive, hopeful, or encouraging, consenting to, right? Affirmative. Action is a thing done, a deed, an initiative, an act or a will. Okay, so if we talk about really what affirmative action is, we are talking about a supportive, hopeful, or encouraging deed or initiative. And in this sense, it is to be equitable so that opportunities and positions are a reflection of what's happening nationwide. So I don't have the statistics for you, and you can pretty much put them in the comments. But if, for example, if our nation is, I'm just throwing out random numbers, these aren't the actual stats, but if our nation was 60% white and 40% people of color, do our colleges, universities, businesses, various positions represent that 60-40 representation? If there's a disparity, a huge disparity where it's 2% people of color and 98% white individuals, then there's a disparity there, right? If you were in a setting where it was predominantly black, okay, but the surrounding community was mixed, 30% white, 30% Asian, 43% black, then the organization, even if it was predominantly black, does not represent its surrounding community. So I come from parents who were hard workers, who worked 2 or 3, 4 jobs to make sure that we had a roof over our head, that we were given opportunities. They went to school while they worked, while they volunteered in our schools, made sure that they had funds to pay for our tuition, and it wasn't easy. Okay, so my parents were working class, right, and really fought hard and long to get to a higher status for that. As a result of their endeavors, myself, my siblings are middle class, okay, based off of the way we think about wealth, the way we think about finances, the way we handle our finances, our income. I've been afforded a number of opportunities. One, because my mother made sure I worked hard. She didn't play, okay? Secondly, she paid for tuition so that I can go to private schools, so I can get better opportunities. Right? So even we struggled, she did it. My father did it. They both worked together to do it. They had their ear open. They wanted to make sure that I got exposure to things that I wasn't normally a part of, maybe would not have been interested in. My teachers took an interest in me to make sure, did I have exposure to these opportunities? Now, whether or not they were writing programs, gifted and talented programs, summer programs, etc., etc. Some that I could do because the cost was nominal. Some I could not because it was too expensive, or time constraints, etc. but I was placed in positions where I was afforded exposure to opportunities that would give me greater experiences and develop my character and my educational status. But how dare I try to represent people of color as a female, as a person of Black, white, and Native American descent? How dare I begin to say that affirmative action is not needed, that a supportive and encouraging initiative to make sure multiple individuals have access to opportunities that they normally would not have access to, how dare I say is no longer necessary because I've arrived or I'm comfortable? And who has ever really arrived, right? So I don't know what the statistic is with those who argue with me that are maybe not the same gender, not the same race, that will say, hey, people of color who are middle class are saying we no longer need affirmative action. We don't need people to give us opportunities. We are already in there and we have those opportunities. How dare I join that conversation when I don't know the statistics and I haven't walked the step in anyone's shoes? But what I will say, I've been one of few, always. Okay, so the opportunities I were given were not populated with many men and women of color. No. If it was 120 students, it might have been 6 of us. If it was 100% student population, it might have been 18% of us, right? And that's not not 18% Spanish, 18% Black, 18% Asian. It was all of us lumped together, 18% people of color to a majority, 82% of another majority. Okay, so I've always been one of a few, and I would tell you, those that were in those opportunities were never people who did not deserve it. It's those that normally would not have been exposed to it. These were individuals who were smart, who were intelligent, who worked and did 150% above what their peers did. So don't ever think that being equitable means putting unqualified, undereducated people into positions to run organizations for which they are not qualified. No, being equitable or the practice of affirmative action was to open up the opportunities so that people would get the exposure and the resources and education they need so that they too can compete for some of these higher levels and positions. Okay? We talk about reverse discrimination. I hate that term. You want to know why? Because it almost gives us a sense as if there's a right way to discriminate. No one talks about legacy. How many times did people get into the same colleges because their grandfather went there, their great-grandfather went there, and their name is on one of those buildings, and so that's why they got in. No one talks about the reason that your child or your peer got into that company or job or whatever else because a family member had been there. Years and years of family members have been there. It's a family business. We all bring our family members in here. Or because someone made a huge enough donation to open up the door for their family members, whether or not they were qualified or not. So if you want to take affirmative action off the table, equity off the table, take legacy off the table, take it's a family business off the table, take all of that off the table. But if you're looking at humankind, if you're looking at mankind, if you're looking at humanity, which is we're all people and we all bleed red. We all have organs that allow us to be alive. We all have the capability to think and function. We all have a right to get the same type of resources. We all have the right to get the same type of education. Now, whether or not people take advantage of it, that's another thing. But we all have a right. So when we come to the table with these asinine arguments that, hey, your people said, we don't need it anymore. How could I speak for the many that didn't get the same opportunities I did, but just as smart, just as hardworking? Give them 1 or 2 years of certain opportunities. Maybe they can then compete for some of these other areas. What we are saying when we're saying being equitable, we're saying is take an affirmative action. Take a supportive and encouraging initiative to make sure that when you're hiring for a position that you are recruiting in a variety of areas where people don't all look like you. I may go into specifically densely populated Asian areas if I'm recruiting for a position, if they're not represented on my job. I may go into densely populated Native American areas, Native American community colleges, Native American colleges, and start recruiting there because they're not represented where I am. It means that we are taking a supportive effort to make sure that we are providing or sharing these opportunities and giving people opportunity, qualified individuals, an opportunity to come to the table. Please don't believe the idea that it's about being disqualified, being unqualified for something. It's not.